Do you ever forget that you have a gender to most people? Meaning that random people at the grocery store see me as a woman and not just a little internet guy? Like, not even kidding when I say I should look like this.
Not 100% a boy, and I'm not 100% a girl. Oh, I something in between, indescribably me.
Sometimes when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm surprised by the person staring back at me. Boo. You'd think after 20 years I'd be used to this bacteria-infested meat that encases my consciousness, but I'm just not. I'm still bewildered by it. Sometimes I'll look at myself and say, that's me. And my voice will sound unfamiliar and unsure, as though that statement were a question. I've never felt like my outward appearance matched my internal world. That's part of the reason why I draw myself as an axolotl. This abstract depiction of myself somehow feels more emotionally true than my literal appearance. I don't hate my body, but I don't love it either. It doesn't feel like it belongs to me. It feels like a rental.
Yeah, I don't actually own this place. I'm just renting it from the guy upstairs.
Part of that disconnection stems from being born in a masculine body despite never feeling like a masculine man. There's been much talk recently about the so-called crisis of masculinity, but my own experiences are fairly detached from that discussion, which usually centers around how young men lack direction and how that's been leading to worse mental health outcomes, academic performance, and job prospects. This doesn't really apply to me. The problem for me is that masculinity doesn't really fit me. It's an oversized sweater. I could wear it, sure, but it's not the perfect fit. To explain why that is, let me give you some context. Ever since I was young, I've felt a kinship with women. I grew up in a house of women, and ever since middle school, most of my friends have been women. It's not that I dislike men, quite the contrary. My gay ass loves men, but as I've matured away from my abrasive, angry, younger self, forming male relationships has become more challenging. Men, in my experience, tend to have this very self-absorbed, prideful attitude that I dislike. They carry themselves with this annoying bravado, constantly belittle others with snide jokes, and always take up more space than necessary. They lack self-awareness and a strong sense of empathy, and overall, they're not very mindful or emotionally intelligent. Of course, I'm generalizing. When we speak about masculinity and femininity, we must generalize because they're a broad set of social expectations and norms that have historically been associated with men and women. But norms change, and there will always be individuals within a society that don't fit within these norms. Like me. I've never really felt like one of the boys. I don't like sports, I'm not loud or witty or funny, I'm relentlessly uncompetitive, I unironically sit like this sometimes, and I'm just not traditionally manly. I was a nerdy, sensitive, and introspective kid who cried a lot and read books. Oh, and that's not to imply that like reading books or being literate is not manly. It's just, I'm talking about my upbringing and how I sort of felt different from a lot of the kids I was growing up with, so yeah. All these things created a palpable divide between me and other men, while it only made women and queer people more comfortable to be around me. As I grew up, I learned more and more about toxic male behavior, sexual assault, stalking, domestic abuse, general misogyny.
Okay, the bad ones.
And I felt so disgusted by it all. I knew that not all men were like this, maybe even most weren't, but I'd seen enough men that were that made me question if the ideas of masculinity I'd been taught were, to put it academically, a bit shit. More broadly, I began to find the delineation between masculinity and femininity increasingly arbitrary and silly. Men are traditionally thought of as strong, protective, forward-facing individuals, but so many men, including myself, are lazy, unambitious, insecure, and weak, whereas some of the strongest, most assertive, resilient, competent, and intelligent people I've met in my life have been women, which really deconstructed the idea of gender roles for me. Strength is not a masculine trait. It is a good trait for anyone to have. Gentleness, kindness, and empathy are not feminine traits. They're traits everyone should have. I'm not saying abolish gender or anything, but I do think that when we overemphasize the difference between men and women, we create this chasm between genders that inevitably leads to conflict and alienation. I remember one time in my senior year of high school, I was walking to class with one of my female friends after lunch. We hugged each other goodbye because hugs are nice, and one of my male classmates saw that and asked if I was dating her. I get that question a lot when I'm with my female friends, which is annoying but also kind of amusing. I answered no, and then he asked a very interesting follow-up question. How do you get bitches? The question shook me to my very core. It was the fact he asked it with such sincerity that threw me off. To me, the question revealed something deeply tragic about my peers' understanding of the world. It was as if he saw women as an entirely different species that he needed to study to understand. He approached courtship like a scientist approaches wildlife, cautiously, curiously, coldly. I didn't know how to answer his question. I don't know what secret knowledge he thought I possessed. I approached women the same way I approached men. I try to match their energy, to be polite, lively, and kind, and to give them space to be themselves without judgment. My classmate was so used to the world accommodating boys, he could barely understand how to accommodate women. I don't say that with judgment, though, because it's not entirely his fault. I say that out of disappointment at the way that boys are raised and the way it fosters so much awful, awful shit. When I look at my body, I'm aware of all that baggage that comes with being a man, and I hate it. It's not body dysphoria so much as it is like body discomfort. I hate what my body represents. As a nearly 6-foot-tall, broad-shouldered black guy with an RBF, I am extremely cognizant of how my body affects the way people interact with me, and I hate it. I sometimes wish I could just not be a man, but it's not like I want to be a woman. I just sort of hate belonging to a gender at all, to quote Nagata Kabi. I don't want to be seen as a man. I don't want to be seen as a woman. I want to be seen as some weird third thing. So why don't I identify as non-binary or gender fluid or genderqueer or what have you? Well, there's a multitude of reasons why, but the main one is that it's just easier to identify as cis. My family is generally pretty left of center when it comes to most issues, but with the LGBT community, their perspectives range from centrist indifference to right-leaning bigotry. For this reason, I still haven't formally come out to my extended family yet, and probably never will, because it's easier not to. Even if it's a little uncomfortable and ill-fitting, I will gladly wear the labels of straight and cisgender if it makes my life easier. I don't have the self-respect or resilience to do otherwise right now. If you were to ask me what I truly, down to my core, identify as, I'd probably say non-binary, but only because I think deep down, we're all a little non-binary. Maybe that's projection, but surely we'd all prefer it if we weren't defined by these rigid ideas of what makes a man or a girl a girl. I think that our internal experiences will never fully align with our external presentation. Some people's voices don't match their face, some people's styles don't match their personality. The multiplicity of the human experience cannot be easily distilled. I want to be a mix of feminine and masculine, to acknowledge that neither perfectly describes me without having to deal with the baggage of being non-binary. Quite recently, I found that the perfect compromise between these conflicting desires is great. My dive into cross-dressing began incrementally. The first step was my nails. There was this guy I met in my senior year of high school who really inspired me to paint my nails for the first time. He was everything I wanted to be. Confident, funny, outgoing, hot, and above all, comfortable with being effeminate. There's a really small chance he may be watching this, and if so, hi. Cody, please stop watching. The first time I went to get my nails painted, I went conservative with the color, choosing to paint them a modest jet black. When I left the salon, I was surprised by the wave of joy and confidence I felt looking at my hands. It was such a tiny thing, but it made me feel attractive. It made me feel cute. I hadn't ever really felt cute before. When people call me handsome, I'm appreciative, but if someone calls me cute, adorable even, oh, that's entirely different. I want so desperately to be adorable. A few months after that, when I was attending a friend's birthday party, one of my friends had offered to put me in a corset. Later in that same year, another friend offered to apply mascara on me when I was over at their place, and I accepted both offers. Those tiny experiments with femininity always felt so natural, so right for me. I dipped my toes in the water. It was only inevitable I take the plunge. Late in 2024, my university hosted its second annual talent show. I had performed the year prior and really enjoyed myself, so I decided to sign up for it again. After the auditions, an idea popped into my mind. What if I performed the show in a skirt and crop top? The idea excited and terrified me. I spent a few weeks before the show scrolling through various options on Amazon, trying to figure out what size to get, what color would work best, and finally, after some trepidation, I made my purchase. When the items arrived, I tried them on secretly with my door closed and experienced a level of gender euphoria I'd heretofore never known. The air on my exposed skin, the flowy movement of the skirt, my chubby midriff, all of it made me feel so cute. It also made me realize how sexy my legs are. Can I say that? I feel like I could say that. I don't know. Am I comfortable with people sexualizing me? This is to say, I was really happy with how I looked in girl clothes, but that joy was quickly replaced with anxiety when I remembered that other people were going to see me in this outfit. My college campus is pretty liberal. I mean, it's the first place I've been to that had gender-neutral bathrooms, but I was still really worried about how people would respond to it. The day prior, I was so panicked driving home from work thinking about my performance. When I stepped onto that stage, though, all the anxieties melted away and I focused all my energy on the performance. And somehow, miraculously, I won first place. People liked me, and more importantly, they didn't care at all that I was wearing a skirt that was maybe a little too small for me. No one cared at all. I didn't realize it before, but that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want people telling me how inspiring it was that I wore a skirt. I didn't want people telling me how inspiring it was that I wore a skirt, nor did I want people calling me homophobic slurs. I wanted people to treat me like a normal human being that decided to dress this way, because that's what it was. I kind of dislike even referring to this as cross-dressing because that makes it feel neurotic. That makes it feel like some perverted thing, like I'm appropriating femininity. I'm just expressing myself in a way that feels truly honest. It's not entirely femme, it's not entirely masc, it's the best of both worlds. So far, my gender fuckery has mainly been limited to the stage. When I'm performing, I have a socially acceptable reason to transgress social boundaries. Performers are allowed, maybe even expected, to be transgressive, if even only for the sake of gaining attention. Cross-dressing in mundane contexts has no performative pretense. It is an affront to normality and subject to harassment. As much as I would love to wear a skirt to, like, Walmart or something, doing that is much more dangerous. I dress in a masculine way, even when I'd rather not, for my own survival, to avoid that abuse. Yet, even in the shield of masculinity, I am not immune to male abuse. On November 7th, 2024, I was sexually harassed for the first time in my life. Full disclosure, I was not hurt, I was not insulted, the guy barely even touched me. It was very mild, but if this discussion is triggering for you, please skip to the timestamp shown on screen. Here's the scene. It was a Thursday. I had just finished returning 2 library books and was in the parking lot. I was wearing an IDK How t-shirt, beige sweatpants, and sandals. The fact that I was wearing sandals is very important. It was a nice day. I know that harassment doesn't have business hours, but there was something especially off-putting about being harassed in broad daylight on a Thursday afternoon. As I walked to my car, a man shouted at me. I turned around to meet his gaze. He was an older guy. I'd say mid-30s, early 40s. He walked up to me with a wide smile and asked what my name was. Then he asked me if I wanted to be his boyfriend. I began to get very nervous. I said no as politely as I could. He took it well, but began to pry, asking if I was in a relationship. I deflected the questions and attempted to subtly back away towards my car. He inched forward. He began to compliment my body. He complimented my toes. I could barely hide my disgust. He tried to touch my feet. I flinched before he made contact. I ran to my car and locked the door. I considered telling the sheriff at the entrance what happened, but all I wanted to do was get away as soon as possible. I drove away as fast as I could. I stopped at another nearby parking lot to gather my composure. I was shaking. I've always been sympathetic to the way our society treats women and female-presenting people in general, but to experience that active dehumanization firsthand gave me a new understanding of that horrific reality. I know every woman in my life has at least 10 stories like that are even more intense and disgusting. And I know that I would be subject to even more harassment if I chose to present femininely. So I don't, because men, as a whole, again, speaking in generalities, kind of terrify me. I'm scared of becoming like the men I'm afraid of, and that's so inherently linked to these complex feelings I've been talking about. That being said, my relationship with gender is most of the time playful rather than harrowing. I don't really care about labels. That's part of the reason why I identify as queer, because I want there to be ambiguity. I want the label not to minimize my existence, but to acknowledge its multiplicity. If you're going to form an opinion about me, I'd rather it be based on my character rather than the arbitrary group I'm a part of. Yet at the same time, I can't act as though these groups that we have been assigned don't have an effect on the people we become or how people look at us. The term boyflux, as coined by Tumblr user Kitchensay, is unironically one of the best descriptions of how I view my gender. Like, I'm 90% boy most of the time, but occasionally my boy levels will drop to like 60%. You know? You get what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I am who I am, and that might be uncomfortable or confusing for some people, but I'm fine with that. I'm a boy. I'm a girl. I'm neither. I'm both. I'm an axolotl. I'm a speck of dust. I'm meat. I'm soup. I'm me. I am the author of my own story. And all you other bitches should be glad to even be side characters.
Disparate parts, desperate hearts pull through a sea.
Oh, hey there. Thank you for making it all the way through this video. This has probably been my most vulnerable and scary video to release to date, but I also think it's very important and necessary, especially given that it is Pride Month. So yeah, if you liked it, you know what to do. You've been on YouTube before.